Today we are going to talk about the total cost function. How does the total cost curve look like and what are the different other measures of cost, other types of cost. So from the same table, we are first going to plot the function for total cost. Okay, now here we notice that there are two cost components. First is the fixed cost, which is the cost of factory, and the other is the cost of workers. Then you add these two costs, and in the last column you get the total cost. So let's try and plot this total cost. So we want to put up a picture or a graph for the total cost. Note that although on the y-axis you have cost, but on the x-axis now you have quantity of output. This is slightly different from the production function. In the production function, you put the output on the y-axis and the input or the number of workers or the number of variable factor on the x-axis. But whenever you are plotting a cost graph, you will put output on the x-axis and cost on the y-axis. Now, next thing would be to just pick up points and plot them here. At 0 units of output, the cost is 30. At 50 units of output, your cost is 40. So basically, you will join all these points at the next point is at 90 units of output, the cost is 50. So somewhere here and somewhere here. When you join all these points, you will get a function like this. You will get a graph like this. And this is called as the total cost function. Remember, this is the total cost because we have added the cost of the factory and the cost of workers. So this is inclusive of the fixed as well as the variable cost, and this is the kind of function that you will get for total cost. Note that the total cost function is totally opposite to the production function, but if you look at these two functions together and if you look at them carefully, you will notice that the two are telling you almost the same thing. So here you have inputs and this is your output and this is your production function. And the total cost function is just the opposite of the production function, but on the y-axis you have cost and here you have output. हमने जब production function को देखा था तो हमने ये बोला था that whenever input increases, output is increasing, but now output is increasing at a decreasing rate. Cost function को अगर आप interpret करो तो again you notice that as output increases, the cost of production increases. As your firm is producing more output, obviously the firm will have to incur more cost and hence the cost is increasing. But here you notice that the cost is increasing at an increasing rate. The slope of the graph is becoming steeper. So cost is increasing at an increasing rate. And in case of production, slope was becoming flatter. And we said that the output is increasing, but it is increasing at a decreasing rate. So although at the first we'll notice that the two are telling you two different things, but अगर इसको साथ में देखोगे, then you will understand that they are in fact telling you the same thing, which is that जब हम बोलते हैं कि output decreasing rate पे increase हो रहा है, इसका मतलब है that you are increasing the output by increasing the input, but now every additional input is contributing lesser output, because of which your cost is increasing at an increasing rate. मतलब you are hiring more labor, you are adding more and more input, so obviously जो भी labor आप add कर रहे हो additional, that will bear a cost. वो cost आपको incur करनी पड़ेगी, लेकिन जो ये productivity ये labor दे रहा है, that is decreasing. We have already discussed that as you keep on increasing the variable factor, the contribution to output decreases. But because you are adding a new input, a new person, a new variable factor, your cost will increase. You will have to pay this person some money, some wages, some salaries. So definitely the cost is increasing, but your output is increasing at a decreasing rate. The net addition to output is decreasing. So that is why cost will increase at an increasing rate. So the two together are going to tell you the same story. So this is the shape of the total cost curve. This is the shape of the production function. Now let's try and understand cost a little bit more and try to understand different measures of cost. How can you understand cost properly? So in this table, you notice that there are again several columns and several rows given to you. The first column tells you the quantity of coffee. Now the product that we are taking is coffee. So the first column is telling you the amount of coffee produced per hour. The second column tells you the total cost. The third is giving you the fixed cost. The fourth gives you the variable cost. Then the fifth one is telling you about average fixed cost. Sixth, average variable cost. Seventh, average total cost. And the last is marginal cost. So we will try and understand each one of them individually. Although हमने fixed cost और variable cost का discussion already कर लिया है, we'll just try and revisit them again. So what is a fixed cost? Fixed cost, we already know that is something that does not change with the change in output. So they are incurred even when the firm is producing nothing at all. Amount of rent that the firm pays will be included in the fixed cost, and you notice that fixed cost for this particular production setup is $3. Even when the firm is producing nothing, even when the firm is producing 0 cups of coffee, the firm has to incur $3 of fixed cost, and that is common, that is constant across all the units of production. Variable cost, on the other hand, is something that definitely changes as output changes, and that is quite obvious. Variable factors are factors जिसमें basically you can talk about labor, जो एक major example है variable inputs का. So as you keep on increasing the number of labor in the production process, your variable cost will increase, and that is quite evident from this table as well. So again, when you add these two, column 3 and column 4, you will get column 2, which is the total cost. So you can notice that at 0 units of production, the total cost is $3, which is nothing but the fixed cost. At 1 unit of coffee, your total cost is 3.30, which is 3 plus the variable, which is 0.30, and so on for all the units of production. So again, if you have to plot the total cost curve for this production process, you will still get the same shape, which will look like this. You have the total output, the number of cups of coffee, and you have the cost on the y-axis. This is your total cost function, जो हमने पिछले example में plot करा था. This one, the shape will remain the same even for this case. Now let's try to understand the two measures of cost, which is called as average and marginal cost. Now you notice that in this table, you have some cost, which is average cost. So you have three versions of the average cost. You have average fixed cost, you have average variable cost, you have average total cost, and then you have one type of marginal cost. So what exactly are these average costs and marginal costs? Now, suppose you are interested in knowing answers to these two following questions. The first is, how much does it cost to make the typical cup of coffee? The second is, how much does it cost to increase the production of coffee by 1 cup? And the answer to these questions are average cost and marginal cost. The answer to the first question is nothing but average cost. So basically, average cost tells you that on an average, what is the cost incurred? What is the cost of production of an average cup of coffee, of a typical cup of coffee? Marginal cost, on the other hand, tells you the cost of an additional cup of coffee. So how much does it cost to increase production of coffee by 1 cup? If you increase the production by 1 unit, how much change would you notice in your cost is basically the marginal cost. So marginal cost tells you the change in cost because of the change in output, and average cost tells you the typical cost. It tells you on an average how much cost you are incurring. Now you can understand average cost in three cases. First is average fixed cost, average variable cost, and average total cost. Firstly, how do you calculate average? Just like how you calculate any normal average, you will take the total fixed cost divided by total quantity. That will give you the average fixed cost. Similarly, average variable cost will be total variable cost divided by total quantity, and average total cost will be total cost divided by total quantity. So now you can calculate average fixed cost, variable cost, and average total cost. Marginal cost, on the other hand, will be the change in the cost for the change in the quantity. The change in the total cost for change in the quantity will be given by marginal cost. Okay, let's try to look at the shapes of each of these cost functions. So again, you have output here and you have cost here. So these are the shapes of the different cost functions. You notice that your average cost function is a downward sloping cost function. It is decreasing as you increase the output. Average variable cost, on the other hand, is an increasing sort of a function. It is increasing as the output is increasing. Similarly, marginal cost is also increasing, and then you have the average total cost. So what is average fixed cost? Average fixed cost is nothing but total fixed cost divided by total quantity. Now, in this particular case, you notice that the numerator is always fixed. As you increase the total quantity, the average fixed cost is going to fall. Because the numerator is not changing, the numerator is always constant. As we increase the total quantity, the average fixed cost decreases. And that's exactly what you see here when you look at the shape of the average fixed cost. You notice that as output increases, the average fixed cost is decreasing. You see a downward shaped average fixed cost. What is happening is आप total fixed cost को लार्ज नंबर ऑफ आउटपुट में डिवाइड कर रहे हो तो ऑब्वियसली जो एवरेज पार्ट बचेगा वो डिक्रीज होता जाएगा जैसे जैसे डिनोमिनेटर इंक्रीज होता जाएगा एंड दैट्स व्हाई यू नोटिस द एवरेज फिक्स्ड कॉस्ट टू बी अ डिक्रीजिंग कर्व. Next is the marginal cost curve. You notice that the marginal cost curve is actually a U-shaped curve. जो एक general marginal cost curve होता है वो U-shaped curve होता है. But यहाँ पे आप notice कर रहे हो that the marginal cost curve is increasing. We first need to know what is marginal cost to be able to understand why the marginal cost curve is increasing. So marginal cost curve is nothing but the change in the cost as the quantity of output increases by 1 unit. So it is the change in the total cost for a unit change in the total quantity. Now this rising marginal cost is actually related to the law of diminishing marginal product that we have already discussed. Diminishing marginal product says that in a time span of a short run, in the presence of some fixed factor, the marginal product of the variable factor decreases. When we talked about the diminishing marginal product, so हमने actually एक part miss करा था. Basically, we just showed the decreasing part of the marginal product, but that's not really true. Initially, the marginal product might actually increase and then it starts to decrease. So ऐसा नहीं होता कि the moment you add first worker or the second worker, the marginal product will decrease. Initially, the marginal product tends to increase, meaning that the extra contribution made by one additional unit of labor will be higher, and eventually as you keep on adding more and more labor, तब marginal product जो है decrease होना शुरू होता है. Actually में अगर आप एक proper marginal cost curve को plot करो, so this is the kind of marginal cost that you get, which is a U-shaped curve. जहाँ पे आप देख रहे हो that for the initial part of the quantity, the marginal cost curve is decreasing, and then after some time, the marginal cost curve increases. These two phases of the marginal cost curve are related to diminishing marginal product. So the moment the marginal cost curve starts increasing, this is the time when you notice diminishing marginal product, because जब आप एक एक्स्ट्रा लेबर ऐड कर रहे हो अपने प्रोडक्शन सेटअप पे, तो वो लेबर जो है आउटपुट को कम कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है ना. इफ द कंट्रीब्यूशन इज लेसर, व्हाट विल यू नोटिस कि आपने एक एक्स्ट्रा लेबर ऐड करा, यू हैव टू पे अ सर्टेन अमाउंट टू दिस एक्स्ट्रा लेबर, जो आप वेजेस पे करोगे, जो आपको हर वर्कर को पे करनी पड़ेगी डिस्पाइट द फैक्ट कि वो वर्कर कितना मार्जिनल प्रोडक्ट कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है. ऐसा नहीं है कि अगर कोई वर्कर का एडिशनल कंट्रीब्यूशन कम है तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि आप उसको कम वेजेस पे करोगे. वेजेस आर सिमिलर. अगर आप एक कंपनी में 10 लोगों को सेम पोजीशन पे हायर कर रहे हो तो एवरीबडी विल गेट द सेम सैलरी, एवरीबडी विल गेट द सेम वेजेस, बट देयर कंट्रीब्यूशन कुड डिफर. सो द पॉइंट हियर इज दैट योर कॉस्ट इज इंक्रीजिंग बाय द सेम अमाउंट, लेकिन contribution made to the output is lesser, which increases your marginal cost. Yeah, so when you add 1 unit of labor, then the change in total cost is higher than the change in quantity. And that results in a rising marginal cost, which is that one labor, one person is adding lesser to quantity but more to cost. Because you are adding one person, you have to pay him or her some fixed amount of money, some salary, जो कि सेम होगी बाकी सभी वर्कर्स को जितनी सैलरी मिल रही होगी उतनी ही सैलरी इस वर्कर को भी मिलेगी, लेकिन दिस वर्कर might be adding lesser to the output because of diminishing marginal product, but the cost is higher, the cost is increasing, and that results into a rising marginal cost. Whereas if you look at this part, the first part जहाँ पे you notice the marginal cost is decreasing, इस सिचुएशन में ऑपोजिट हो रहा होता है। इस सिचुएशन में the contribution to output is larger. जब आप कोई एक एक्स्ट्रा एडिशनल लेबर ऐड करोगे, देन दैट लेबर इज एडिंग मोर टू द आउटपुट। इन दिस पर्टिकुलर सिचुएशन द मार्जिनल कॉस्ट विल डिक्रीज। फुल पिक्चर ऑफ द मार्जिनल कॉस्ट वेर यू एक्सपीरियंस अ यू शेप्ड कर्व, जहां पे पहले मार्जिनल कॉस्ट डिक्रीज होती है और फिर मार्जिनल कॉस्ट इंक्रीज होती है। हम यहाँ पे स्पेसिफिकली इंक्रीजिंग पार्ट ऑफ मार्जिनल कॉस्ट की बात कर रहे हैं, दैट इज व्हाट इज मोर रेलेवेंट इन आवर एग्जांपल। बट एक प्रॉपर पिक्चर जो होती है मार्जिनल कॉस्ट की, वो ऐसी होती है। बस ये ध्यान में रखना है कि जब भी मार्जिनल कॉस्ट इंक्रीज हो रही है, देन साइमल्टेनियसली मार्जिनल प्रोडक्ट डिक्रीज हो रहा होता है। तो बेसिकली अगर मैं एक प्रॉपर कंपैरिजन आपको दूं बिटवीन marginal product and marginal cost, and this is the kind of situation. This is your marginal cost curve and this is your marginal product curve. Production process के जिस पार्ट के लिए marginal cost increase हो रही है, वहां पे आप नोटिस करोगे कि marginal product decrease हो रहा होता है। तो marginal cost और marginal product opposite directions में चलते हैं। यहाँ पे हमने जब marginal product ड्रॉ करा था, तो हमने सिर्फ नेगेटिव वाला पार्ट ड्रॉ करा था, और इसीलिए हम यहाँ पे मार्जिनल कॉस्ट का सिर्फ इंक्रीजिंग वाला पार्ट ड्रॉ कर रहे हैं। बट पूरा जो पिक्चर होता है वो कुछ इस तरीके से दिखता है।